Hello and welcome straight to New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. West Asia's ceasefire shattered as Israeli strikes across Gaza kill over 400 people, including top Hamas operatives. World leaders condemn the aerial bombings. Ukraine's foreign minister urges Russia to unconditionally accept the 30-day ceasefire proposal ahead of the Trump-Putin phone call. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar underscores the need for a fair and robust international order on day 2 of the Raisina dialogue in Delhi. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi pens an emotional letter for Sunita Williams, wishes her a safe return for India's pride. Israel's military has said it conducted strikes on Hamas targets in the Palestinian enclave, killing more than 400 people as explosions were heard over Gaza City in the early hours of Tuesday. Israel said that the recent strikes on Gaza are a response to Hamas's repeated refusal to release hostages, as well as rejection of all ceasefire proposals. Nations across the globe have expressed their concern over the recent strikes by Israel. The military has mentioned that the Home Command has ordered restrictions on civilian activity near the Gaza Strip following airstrikes. Schools will also be closed in areas near the Gaza Strip on Tuesday. Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, said that Israel will show no mercy to its enemies.
The Israeli Air Force initiated a series of attacks against Hamas targets in Gaza. We will show no mercy on our enemies. Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home. We will make it very clear to the Security Council that if they want to stop the war in Gaza, they have to ensure that the hostages are coming back to Israel. We are committed to bring them back.
US President Donald Trump is set to hold talks with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin over a phone call. Trump said that many elements of a peace agreement in Ukraine have been agreed. The talks are scheduled for Tuesday morning and are aimed at ending the Ukraine conflict with territorial concessions by Kyiv and control of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Trump has been trying to win Putin's support for a 30-day ceasefire proposal that Ukraine accepted last week. And confirming the time for talks between Presidents Putin and Trump, the Kremlin has said that the phone call will be held between 1300 and 1500 GMT on Tuesday. It also said that talks will be about settling the Ukraine conflict and normalizing relations between Russia and the United States.
It definitely will be from 16 to 18 Moscow time. Indeed, as you know, there have been some discussions. So there is a certain understanding undoubtedly, but there are also a large number of issues related to the further normalization of our bilateral relations and Ukrainian settlement. All of that is to be discussed by the two presidents.
Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha has said on Tuesday that Kyiv was not the obstacle for a peace deal with Russia and believes it can achieve just and lasting peace under the leadership of US President Trump. Sybiha was addressing Raisina Dialogue 2025 in New Delhi.
This war is not about Ukraine. That's why it is also a global interest to achieve just, comprehensive, long-lasting peace. Yes, after Jeddah, we got another speed, new additional opportunities to end this war this year. And we are ready for this. We are not the obstacle to achieve peace.
And amid peace deal hopes, a Russian artist retrieved from storage a combination portrait of both presidents painted on the occasion of Trump's first presidency in the United States. The painting is a combination of the faces of both Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, with peace written in the lower left corner. The art piece or painting is named as Peace to Peace. The European Union led the way as donors on Monday pledged 5.8 billion euros in aid for Syria at a conference in Brussels. However, donation was down on the $7.5 billion promised or euros promised overall at the conference last year. EU Commissioner for the Mediterranean, Dubravka Šuica, said that this money should be used for early recovery for the benefit of all Syrian citizens. The conference, 9th Brussels conference, standing with Syria, meeting the needs for a successful transition, was aimed at mobilizing international support for an inclusive, peaceful transition and generate pledges for humanitarian and non-humanitarian assistance.
We just closed Syrian pledging conference. This was 9th conference in a row. It was very successful. We pledged a lot of money. Better to say it is 5.8 billion euro, out of which there is 4.2 in grants and only 1.6 in loans. I think this is good for the recovery, for the early recovery of Syria. And I also hope that Syrian authorities, who were represented by their Minister of Foreign Affairs, can be satisfied, and this money could and should be used for their early recovery and for the benefit of all Syrian citizens.
And Donald Trump has visited the John F. Kennedy Center in Washington in his first trip since appointing himself chairman and making changes to the leadership. Speaking from the presidential opera box, Trump underscored his vision for the future of the institution. Trump highlighted his concerns about the Kennedy Center, mentioning that it was in tremendous disrepair and needed improvements. And also at the center, Trump announced that his administration would release all remaining Kennedy files on Tuesday. Trump revealed that he had instructed his team, including several individuals assembled by Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, to release documents. He mentioned that there was a large amount of material to go through and emphasized that no redactions were anticipated. But during his campaign, Trump had promised to release the files related to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, a case that continues to fuel conspiracy theories more than 60 years after his death. The 35th President of the U.S. was assassinated on the 22nd of November 1963 during his official visit to Dallas, Texas.
We are tomorrow announcing and giving all of the Kennedy files. So people have been waiting for decades for this, and I've instructed my people that are responsible, lots of different people, put together by Tulsi Gabbard, and that's going to be released tomorrow. We have a tremendous amount of paper. You've got a lot of reading. I don't believe we're going to redact anything. I said, just don't redact. You can't redact. But we're going to be releasing the JFK files.
Also, the Trump administration's removal of hundreds of Venezuelans amid a court battle to block their deportation has ignited alarm. It may have violated a court order barring its use of the Alien Enemies Act. We tell you what transpired in our next report.
US government is staring at a showdown with the judiciary after his Trump administration expelled alleged members of a Venezuelan gang under centuries-old wartime legislation. A federal judge held a hearing on Monday on whether the government deliberately ignored orders by flying more than 200 people to El Salvador. Justice Department lawyers told Judge James Bosberg that the deputies had already left the United States when the judge issued his written order barring their departure. White House said use of Alien Enemies Act was justified as Trump had declared members of the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang as a foreign terrorist group. Rights groups have now warned that the wartime legislation could be used as cover for mass deportations without due process.
We had serious concerns going into the day that the government violated a federal court order. Today did nothing to dispel it. If anything, it reinforced that our view that the government may very well have violated this order, perhaps even knowingly violated.
Venezuela has denounced the treatment meted out to its nationals as fascist and a massive violation of human rights.
They handcuffed them without telling them where they're going. And when they arrived in El Salvador, they got them off the hard way. They humiliate them by throwing them on the ground. They shaved them. Do you call this justice? Do you call this international law? Do you call this human rights? How do you call this? This is called fascism, Nazism, and Venezuela is ready to denounce this massive violation of human rights against honorable migrant workers in the United States.
The Alien Enemies Act was last used in World War II to intern tens of thousands of Japanese Americans. Further, President Trump also claimed he had annulled pardons issued by his predecessor, Joe Biden, on the grounds that his Democratic predecessor supposedly used an auto pen for his signature. Bureau Report, DT India.
And after being stranded in space for 9 months, Tuesday brought moments of cheer and joy for NASA astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore as they began their journey back to Earth. With this, their extended stay aboard the International Space Station has come to an end, and they're now returning in a SpaceX capsule along with 2 other astronauts. The 4-person crew is scheduled for a splashdown of Florida's coast on Tuesday evening. It was in June of last year when the astronaut duo was launched into space as Starliner's first crew of what was expected to be an 8-day test mission. But issues with the Boeing spacecraft's propulsion system led to cascading delays in their return home. And with the astronauts now also to return to Earth from the International Space Station, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday expressed his concern for the daughter of India. In a heartfelt letter sent to Sunita, Prime Minister Modi said that she reflects the pride of 1.4 billion Indians. He recalled a recent meeting with astronaut Mike Massimino, during which Sunita's name had come up. The Prime Minister wrote this letter to Sunita, wishing her strength and a safe return, and reaffirmed India's deep bond with its illustrious daughter. Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world as well. Well, activists held vigils and protested in The Hague, calling for former Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte to be held accountable as he faces trial at the International Criminal Court. This is for his war on drugs campaign that killed thousands of people. Hundreds of migrants were evicted from a cultural center in France by the police as they protested against the action. The migrants had been staying in the center for the last 3 months. They later left the center peacefully without any use of force or clashes. A blast at a scrap metal shop in Thailand killed 1 woman and injured 4 others. The blast took place during the sorting of scrap. The area has been cordoned off and authorities have warned residents to stay away. The incident is under investigation. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon visits Delhi's Bap Swaminarayan Akshardhan Temple on day 2 of his bilateral trip to India. And US National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard tells a gathering at Delhi's Raisina Dialogue that America first does not mean America alone. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon visited the Bap Swaminarayan Akshardham Temple in Delhi on Tuesday as part of his 5-day India visit. Prime Minister Luxon acknowledged the significant contribution of the Hindu community in New Zealand. He also expressed appreciation for the community's role in shaping New Zealand's multicultural society. And speaking to DD India, New Zealand's Prime Minister said that India and New Zealand are nearing the signing of an FTA agreement.
Can we expect the FTA to come soon? We're going to work really hard on it, but we've got a great future, our two great countries.
Delhi Airport and Auckland Airport have signed an MOU to enhance air connectivity, boost passenger and trade growth and strengthen India-New Zealand ties. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya spoke with Vede Kumar Jaipuriyar, CEO of Delhi International Airport Limited, and Carrie Hurihongani, CEO of Auckland Airport, on how this partnership will facilitate greater people-to-people movement.
Vijay Jangir sir is there from the Delhi airport, and Carrie is there from the Auckland airport to talk about the MOU that have been signed between both countries. Sir, Delhi airport is one of the largest airport, not just in the country but around the globe. How you guys are working towards facilitating travel between India and New Zealand?
Today we don't have a direct connectivity between India and New Zealand. However, there is a big diaspora of Indians who are based in New Zealand, and we have seen the interest in New Zealand growing even from the travel and tourism point of view. So that is where that is Delhi Airport and Auckland Airport, we got together and we exchanged numbers that what is the potential between the two locations. And then we have signed a memorandum of understanding as to how we will work together to make this direct travel possible.
Right. Kerry, tell us, give us some detail. Currently there is no direct flight between the countries. How you guys are planning to work with Delhi Airport to bridge that gap?
It's about sharing insights, information. How do we think about travel, trade? How do we share insights between our operations to provide the right customer experience and otherwise? So we've got quite a broad range of things that we can do to promote that. Between our two airports.
Is there any timeline that you guys are looking at that by then things will be start moving into in place?
Timeline between the two airports, we are clear, we can start anytime. So it is about availability of equipment. There are airlines that we are talking to. So whenever we have got the aircraft which is available, which is going to make this long haul travel possible, we are willing to start.
With this MOU, New Zealand will be on the tourist destination and will actually become a favorite tourist destination for Indians.
Well, we certainly get positive feedback. There's something like 18 million active considerers through Tourism New Zealand that want to come to New Zealand. And so our job, what we're saying we want to work on, is making those direct opportunities rather than having to go a one-stop.
That was two representatives of Auckland and Delhi Airport vying to make sure that both countries come together. With Prasar Bharati, this is Tapas Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar has underscored the need for a fair and robust international order. Speaking at the Thrones and Thorns Defending the Integrity of Nations session at the Raisina dialogue, the External Affairs Minister stressed the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity, calling it a vital principle and a bedrock of global rules.
After the Second World War, the longest standing illegal, I would say, presence, occupation of a territory by another country pertains to India. What we saw in Kashmir. Now, we went to the UN. What was an invasion was made into a dispute. So the attacker and the victim were put on par. Who were the culpable parties? UK, Canada, Belgium, Australia, USA. We speak today of political interference. When the West goes out into other countries, it's apparently in pursuance of democratic freedoms. When other countries come into the West, it seems to have a very malign intention.
Further, Dr. Jaishankar underlined the need for a strong as well as a fair UN, adding that a strong global order must have some basic consistency of standards. Now, U.S. National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard delivered the keynote address at the ongoing Raisina dialogue in New Delhi on Tuesday. Gabbard expressed her delight at returning to India, praising the country's warm culture and rich history. She emphasized the enduring strength of the U.S.-India partnership, noting that it has stood the test of time for decades.
It's been a constructive few days where I've been engaging with our Indian counterparts. The partnership between our two countries has been strong for decades, and under the leadership of two great leaders and true great friends, President Trump and Prime Minister Modi, and rooted in our shared values of peace and freedom, security and prosperity, I'm confident that this partnership and friendship between our two nations and our leaders will continue to grow and strengthen.
Gabbard further noted that President Trump's America First policy does not mean America alone.
So just as President Trump is committed to America first, putting the safety, security, and freedom of the American people at the forefront of his policies and his decisions, Prime Minister Modi is committed to India first. Prime Minister Luxon is committed to New Zealand first. This is the expectation of any leader's commitment to their people, to serve them, to put their interests at the forefront of their decisions. But this should not be misunderstood to mean that America first is America alone. The relationships that we build together are critical to advance our mutual interests.
And on the sidelines of the Raisina Dialogue 2025, India's External Affairs Minister also interacted with Peru's FM Elmer Sheila Salcedo today. The leaders discussed avenues for deepening bilateral, political, economic and infrastructure cooperation and widening multilateral engagement. The leaders also witnessed an exchange of agreements between National Archives of India and General Archives of Peru on quick impact projects. Meanwhile, as the Raisina Dialogue 2025 continues, more foreign ministers have been arriving in the national capital to participate in the conference. Hungary's foreign minister of Bolivia, Hungary, Norway and Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Rafael Mariano Grossi, arrived in New Delhi earlier on Tuesday. Now, even as US President Donald Trump increases pressure on Ukraine and Russia to conclude the ceasefire agreement, Europe remains apprehensive about the terms of the truce deal and whether it would bring long-term peace. DD India's Amritpal Singh spoke with Latvia's Foreign Minister Baiba Braze ahead of the phone call between President Putin and Trump on Tuesday.
At the 10th Raisina Dialogue being held here in New Delhi, the hottest topic here has been how the Russia-Ukraine war could be ended and how efforts are being made. To talk about that, I have with me Latvia's Foreign Minister, Baiba Braze. Ma'am, thank you very much for speaking to us. How is Europe looking at this latest effort, even as President Putin and President Trump speak today to iron out the final details of the ceasefire agreement?
We all stand for peace. Everybody wants peace. Ukraine, for most people, want peace. I mean, they are the ones who were attacked, so of course they want peace. And then, of course, when we look at Russia, we don't see indicators that Russia really wants peace. So when we look at Russia's military, it continues attacking Ukraine. When we look at Russia's economy, it's still war economy. Religion, private sector, civilians, it's all around the world, war. So the question is, can we get a peace that lasts? Because that's what we all want. That is a just peace that guarantees Ukraine's sovereignty.
What is Latvia's position and what is the position of the Baltic states about putting a coalition of the willing and putting troops on ground to secure some kind of guarantee that Russia does not again repeat what it did earlier?
It will depend. We have to ask our military colleagues, what is the best military option to ensure that there is some presence of whether peacekeepers or whatever it's called, involvement and presence, but it cannot be predicted because it will depend on the overall settlement of the peace effort.
And what about the land exchange? What about the territories of Ukraine that Russia already controls? Because President Putin has given signals that he's not giving anything back. And while President Zelensky yesterday said they'll never recognize what this call is annexation by Russia.
The United Nations has recognized Ukraine in its international borders, right? And that is what will stay. It will be part will continue to be occupied by Russia, and it will be called occupied territories. We have occupied territories also in the Middle East, right? We have occupied territories in the Caucasus. Russia occupies parts of Georgia. So there is that possibility that continues.
So even as President Trump tells President Putin in the phone call that this needs to be done, but it's easier said than done because there are many wrinkles that need to be ironed out. Amritpal Singh for DD India in New Delhi.
The Indian government has significantly increased the allocation for the Vigyan Dhara scheme in the budget year 2025-26. The budget for Vigyan Dhara scheme witnessed a substantial increment from 330.75 crore rupees in 2024-25 to 1,425 crore rupees in 2025-26. This increased allocation underscores the government's dedication to fostering science and technology as a foundation for national progress. The Vigyan Dhara scheme came into force on the 16th of January this year. It merges three key umbrella schemes into one, focusing on science and tech, institutional and human capacity building, research and development, and innovation, technology development as well as deployment. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. You can scan the QR code on the screen and download the app right now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.